Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev and this week we are talking about the Gold Rush. This movie was released in 1925. It is a Charlie Chaplin film, so it is an early silent film. Quick synopsis from IMDb. A prospector goes to the Klondike during the 1890s gold rush in hopes of making his fortune and is smitten with a girl he sees in a dance hall. So this movie is about an hour and a half long. There's a lot that happens in that hour and a half. Being a silent film, it jumps around a lot. There's a lot that's going on. Being a Charlie Chaplin film, it's a lot of slapstick comedy, which is fine. It made it more enjoyable. I will say that I liked this more than the last silent film I watched, which was Intolerance, I believe, which was longer. And I'm glad that this one wasn't super long, but it was still enjoyable to watch. It stars Charlie Chaplin as the lone prospector, Mark Swain as Big Jim, who is also a prospector, Tom Murray, who plays Black Larsen, who is a criminal, and Georgia Hale, who plays Georgia, who is the love interest that I mentioned in the synopsis at the beginning. It was written and directed also by Charlie Chaplin. So this movie starts off with, you see a bunch of hundreds of people supposedly in Alaska trying to, go up this pass to make it to gold country, I guess is what you would call it. The film was actually it's the only shot that was filmed on location anywhere. It was filmed in the Sierra Nevadas in Northern California, so it wasn't actually filmed in Alaska. It was filmed in California. I think it said that he had 2,300 extras march that path. Let me see if I can find that again real quick here. It doesn't say a number. He had 600 extras. Sorry, that's my dryer. Yeah, I didn't turn that off before this, so you're gonna hear that again here in a second. 600 extras up a 2,300 foot pass. So 2,300 is a number in there. I just got the wrong one where. Anyway, so this movie, that part of the movie was filmed on location in Truckee, California, which is known for its snowfall. Shot over 2 weeks. Yeah, so 2 weeks. Everything else was shot in Hollywood on Chaplin's. It's on his studio lot. So anyway, you see that scene. It's a bunch of people walking up the side of a mountain trying to get there, and then it cuts to Charlie Chaplin trying to find. There it is again. Trying to find his way, trying to find gold, and he's kind of a bum. Like in a lot of his movie, he kind of plays like a bum, a tramp, whatever you want to call. He's always got the same outfit, same bowler hat, kind of like almost like a suit type outfit, but it's always kind of raggedy looking. But you also see Big Jim in a different scene. He's made his claim to land, and he's found gold on his land. And you kind of see him, you kind of cut back and forth between him and Charlie Chaplin. And eventually you see a storm roll in, that ends up sending both of them to Black Larsen's cabin in the middle of nowhere. Charlie Chaplin first ends up there. Black Larsen is a criminal. He's wanted by the police. You actually see him before they show up burning a wanted poster with his picture on it. And when Charlie Chaplin gets there, he tries to kick him out. As he's doing that, Big Jim shows up as well. Sorry for the voice. I've still kind of getting over illness, and it's been kind of going away. So we'll see if I make it through this whole thing. Big Jim shows up as well. Larsen tries to get them both out, threatening him with a shotgun. They overpower him, and they all end up staying. After a couple days, they're all hungry, so they all basically draw straws to see who's going to go out and try to find food. Larsen ends up losing, goes out to try to find food. He comes across a police camp where he finds food. He also finds the police officers who who realize that it's him. He ends up killing them. He takes their food, and then he finds Big Jim's camp and decides to stay there by himself. He takes the food, all the food, stays there by himself. Meanwhile, Big Jim and Chaplin, Charlie's character, the prospector, are still at the cabin. They're starving, so they decide to. Chaplin decides to cook one of his shoes, and they eat the leather from his shoe, which is a random scene. You see him poking the shoe with a fork after cooking it, which is kind of comical. And that's what they decide to eat. A couple more days kind of go by, and Big Jim sees Charlie as a chicken and tries to chase him down to eat him instead of because he's so hungry. And that's when a bear comes in, and they kill the bear and they eat the bear. Anyway, random stuff going on. Anyway, storm blows by. Charlie and the prospector and Big Jim, Charlie Chaplin and Big Jim, go their separate ways. Big Jim's going to find his claim, his gold claim again. Chaplin's going to go to the nearby town. Big Jim finds Larsen, the criminal, at his claim, and gets hit in the head with a shovel. Larsen hits him in the head with a shovel, and then takes off with the food again. He ends up falling off a cliff and dying. So that's the end of him. Bad guy dead. Big Jim wakes up, doesn't know what's going on, can't remember anything, and starts wandering, basically. Meanwhile, Prospector is in town, in a gold boom town, these little towns that popped up during the time. And he doesn't really have anything. He's kind of just wandering around. He ends up meeting a guy to help take care of his. He ends up tricking a guy into feeding him and things, and then ends up taking care of his cabin while he's off prospecting. And this is where he runs in and meets Georgia at the dance hall. Georgia kind of teases him by dancing with him, saying she's going to dance with the worst looking tramp in the place, while trying to get back at another guy who's trying to court her, I guess, who's kind of not a great person, not a great dude. Anyway, Chaplin falls in love with her, invites her to dinner and her friends. They kind of take it as a joke and don't ever show up. And you kind of get this back and forth between he's kind of like falling for her. She's just looking at him as like a joke and just kind of, oh, he's a bum. We're just going to mess with him. Eventually she goes to show up to the dinner that he invited her to, finds gifts, and kind of, has a little bit of a change of heart. A little bit. And, at this point, Big Jim wanders into town, finds the prospector, and he remembers that he had a gold claim, just doesn't know where it is, but he knows if he can find the cabin. He remembers the cabin. If he can find the cabin, then he can find the gold. So he finds the prospector, Charlie Chaplin, and he's like, I remember you. you were at the cabin with me. You need to take me back to the cabin, and I'll make you rich. I'll make you a millionaire." At the same time, Charlie gets a note from Georgia saying that she's sorry and whatever, even though that was kind of a joke in the original cut from the guy that was being mean to her. She's kind of actually fallen for him. But anyway, Charlie Chaplin falls for her, tells her he loves her, is gonna come back and get her when he becomes rich and everything else. So they go off. They find the cabin. Another storm blows in. Ends up blowing the cabin to the edge of a cliff, and almost off the edge of a cliff. They end up barely escaping, and that's where, and it ends up right where Big Jim's claim was. So then you cut to a year later. They're both now millionaires, boarding a ship to go back to the mainland U.S. Charlie Chaplin is, obviously he's rich now. He's not a bum anymore. Big Jim is also rich. Charlie Chaplin, though, he's still got a picture of Georgia, and just that basically is. He says he has everything now, but not her. She was the only thing he couldn't find or couldn't get. So, unbeknownst to him, there's a magazine. Well, there's a magazine that's following them around because this is a big story. They're millionaires now. The magazine wants to take pictures of him in his mining clothes, so he puts on the rags again. And as they're trying to take a picture, he ends up falling down the stairs. More slapstick comedy, and he sees Georgia there on the boat, who he did not know was there. She mistakes him. She hears that the crew is looking for a stowaway. She thinks that he's the stowaway, tries to hide him. Then she learns that he's a millionaire, and at the end they end up sharing a kiss, and that's where it all ends. So that's it. That's the whole movie. Quick synopsis of what's going on. Not that quick, but as quick as they normally are. Anyway, so I enjoyed this. It's fun to watch. I will say this movie was nominated for 2 Academy Awards. As far as I can tell, I did not see that it won either one of them. This movie has 2 releases, actually, which was interesting. So, the first release was in 1925, and did really well. It actually was the highest grossing silent film ever at the time at the box office. And it made Charlie Chaplin $2 million profit at that time, which is a lot of money in 1925. Several, $20 million, 20-some million dollars. He said that it was what he wanted to be, the movie that he wanted to be remembered for. But in the 40s, in 1942, he re-edited it and re-released it. He added a music score to it, because, it didn't have that originally, because it was a silent film. So it would have had, you would have had a musician in there playing music with the movie, a live musician in there playing music with the movie. But he added music. He added a narration, which was done by himself, and he kind of, from what I could tell, he cut a lot of things out. He made some changes to the way that it was cut. He took out the whole trick with the guy in Georgia of trying to play a prank on him, part of it, and he rearranged some of the shots. So, the version that I watched, which I found on HBO on Max, is what they, as close as they can get to as close as they've gotten to the original. The original doesn't exist anymore. There's no copies of it, or there's no full original. There's snippets of it, and there's copies of it that they have found, but the picture is different for both of them. So they've tried to, there's a a group that has tried to, a couple groups that have worked together to try to recreate the original with the original text, the original wording, for the text slates that you would see that explain what's going on or the what they're saying. So they've tried to recreate it, which is the version that I watched. I think it said it still uses the music from the 42 version though. So when he cut it down, they said it cut out several minutes in 40s. They said it cut out several minutes, and it also, since it had sound added to it, it had to be sped up to the normal frame rate, which we talked about in the last one. So the 24 frames a second, I think is what it is, instead of whatever it was originally filmed at, which would have been slower as a silent film. That's pretty common. So it had to be sped up, which also made it shorter. So it is an interesting, 24 frames a second. It is fun if you have, hour and a half to sit down and watch it. There is a scene in it that has been used has been made its way into pop culture a little bit more. There's a scene where he's daydreaming about this meal with these girls, and he does a dance with two forks. He does a dance with two rolls, dinner rolls. He puts forks in them and then acts like they're his feet. And he does a little dance on the table with him. And that's been used in a couple places. It was also reportedly seen in a Buster Keaton film from about 8 years earlier, something like that. Also, what I thought was interesting about this is this movie was he took part inspiration from the Gold Rush and the Donner Party. He got apparently the shoe eating from the Donner Party, and which was the group of cannibals that got stuck in the mountains and turned to eating the leather in their shoes, and eventually, and some of them turned to cannibalism, which is kind of weird. But what does it say here? It says Chaplin, who believed tragedies and comedies are not that far from each other, decided to combine these stories of deprivation and horror in comedy. So, I mean, comedy, tragedy, it's kind of the same thing. You see that. Charlie Chaplin said that this was the film he wanted most to be remembered for. It was a fun movie. I recommend it for anybody who wants to watch a classic movie. Again, it's a silent film, so if you're not gonna do well without dialogue, it's a lot of slapstick, and you kind of have to watch and pay attention to what's going on, because if you don't, you're just gonna hear a bunch of music. So if you're not watching it, you're not ever gonna know what's going on. You do have to actually sit down and watch it. But I do recommend it. It was fun to watch. And I think that's all I got for you guys this week. Next week, doing a special Christmas holiday episode with Nikki's going to join me for that. We're both watching we're watching both of our favorite. That was weird. I moved the mouse and it went from light to dark on my face. Anyway, next week we're watching our favorite holiday movies, and we're going to talk about those. So you get a special Christmas holiday episode and a twofer, because we're going to be talking about two different movies. So I hope you guys will join me and Nikki for that special episode, and that'll be coming out on Christmas Day. So I will talk to you guys on Christmas.